Palestinian militant group Hamas released a new video on Monday announcing the death of two Israeli hostages who were taken to Gaza on October 7th. The video showed a woman hostage named as Noa Argamani speaking under duress, revealing that two men she was held captive with had been killed. Well, it is not clear when the video was taken. Hamas had released another video on Sunday showing Argamani along with two hostages who were seen alive. The pair, widely named in the media as 53-year-old Yossi Sharabi and 38-year-old Ita Swareski, were the same men announced as having been killed in Monday's video. In a statement released with Monday's video, Hamas's armed wing said that the two men were killed in the Zionist army's bombing. Israel's army called Hamas's release of the video a brutal use of innocent hostages. Military spokesperson Daniel Hagari rejected Hamas's claim that the hostages, including Swareski, were killed by the Israeli forces. He said, and I'm quoting here, "The building in which they were kept was not a target and it was not attacked by our forces." Shortly after the video's release on Monday, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant stated that Hamas was applying psychological pressure to the families of the hostages. The army was helping the families, he said, and keeping them up to date with any other news of them. Take a listen.
If the fire stops, the fate of the abductees will be sealed for many years in the captivity of Hamas. Without military pressure, no one will talk to us. Without military pressure, we will not be able to reach any agreements. Only from a position of strength can the abductees be freed.
Well, on Sunday, Abu Obeda, a spokesperson for Hamas's armed wing, said that many of the hostages are likely to have been killed recently. He said, and I'm quoting him here, "The enemy's leadership and army bear full responsibility. Psychological warfare is the use of threats, propaganda and other non-combat methods to scare, demoralize, mislead or otherwise affect enemies' conduct or thinking." Since the war between Israel and Hamas began in October, psychological warfare has been an additional arena in which both the sides are fighting. When it comes to psychological warfare, various playbooks have been used over the years. Hamas, an ideologically driven Islamist terror organization, has used several of these tactics. As per the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, Hamas members manipulate the victim role to garner support from world opinion. And when facing a stronger force like Israel, this strategy, also known as psychological asymmetry, has allowed Hamas to undertake actions that can be classified as war crimes. They then take cover under a blitz of distorted information that focuses on Israel as the guilty party here. The Israeli officers are also pointing to Hamas's psychological games and say that the military campaign would help end the captive crisis. Even in October, when Hamas released a video showing three women hostages, Netanyahu dubbed it cruel propaganda. The release of hostages by Hamas had all the underpinnings of a psychological thriller. There was a mixture of suspense and horror, followed by relief and emotional scenes of relatives reunited, some of whom learned for the first time that other loved ones were still in captivity or had been murdered. Hamas militants also delayed the release of hostages. The aim was to increase anxiety in the Israeli minds, as families of those to be released were kept waiting to welcome them home amid a slew of reports on what was happening to them. And for more on the current situation in West Asia, we are now being joined by correspondent Jody Cohen. She's joining us live from Renana. Hi, Jody. Welcome to the show. What can you tell us about the latest video of the hostages released by Hamas and also about the condition of those injured in the attacks in Renana?
Hi, Risha. Yes, so as we know, Hamas released that video showing three of the hostages, saying that there were three options for them, that they were either dead or alive, or that some of them were alive, and that on Monday they would say their fate. And as he said, on Monday evening they published a video showing Noah Al-Gamani reading a script saying that the other two hostages in that previous video were dead and that they had been killed by IDF strikes. Now, the IDF have told those families that they are concerned for their safety, but that they didn't strike in that location. And commentators are suggesting that Hamas has now killed more than 20 of the more than 130 hostages still being held captive in Gaza. Now, War Cabinet Minister Gadi Eisenkot has said that he believes time is running out and that Israel needs a large deal to free all the hostages. But Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has said that he still believes military pressure is what ultimately will lead Hamas to...
Right, there seems to be a technical glitch there. We were just talking about the current situation as the war rages on in West Asia. And our correspondent Jody Cohen is back with us on the broadcast. Jody, we were talking about the current situation in West Asia. Talk to us as to what is Israel's response to reports of widespread hunger in the Gaza Strip as a result of this war. And can we expect to see any improvements on that front anytime soon?
Right, so 3 UN agencies have now talked about there being widespread hunger in Gaza. And unlike in previous statements, the UN stopped short of blaming Israel. Now, Israel has been insisting for weeks that there is no limit on the amount of aid that it can inspect. Remember that Israel checks all aid going into Gaza for weapons smuggling. And Israel has said that at times the UN has actually asked Israel to pause sending further aid in, and that the bottleneck is UN agencies. Now, Moshe Tetro, who's a COGAT official, which is the agency responsible for coordinating between Israel and Gaza, he said that the UN needs more workers to receive the supplies, that there needs to be more UN trucks to transfer the aid, and that the working hours at the Rafah crossing with Egypt need to be extended. Israel's also said that it coordinates with the UN agencies so they know where the fighting is so that aid can be distributed, and that before the war 70 food trucks a day were entering Gaza. Last week that figure was more than 100, and last night they said it was around 230 food trucks. They're also saying that the challenge appears to be Hamas stealing much of the aid for their fighters, taking the food into the tunnels and not allowing it for the civilians.
Right, Jody, thanks very much for joining us and sharing insights with us. We'll, of course, be tracking this very closely here.